we've tried making great whiskies, charging accessible price points, and trying to put stuff out there that we'd really want to buy ourselves. We take the name 1770 for the single malts.
Smoking, so in essence we do currently at the moment is Rothers, there's Duff.
So we're very fortunate to work with them. So 6 years of first of all roast, I think the market like that, the colour, it's quite amber gold, it's not really driving into that. And that's what we could spend in the village. That's the one love for that. But yeah, so built in 1785 was designed by Richard Hartman.
Brilliant. So thank you for joining us for our last Digital Drams of 2025. A really, really special one. Our W Club Awards winners for this year. We did the 2024 version at the end of January, and it doesn't feel like that long ago. There's some repeat names. So obviously, Declan, you didn't join last time for the call. It was your colleague Luke, but Black Bottle was the blended was a blended winner last year as well. So that's, I think, our only whiskey tonight that's won twice in a row. So that's a first for the W Club Awards. It'll go down in history as the first whiskey to have repeat medals in the W Club Awards. It's been running for 3 years now. For anyone joining the call who isn't sure or needs a refresher onto how this works, so we ask brands to send in whiskies. Once we get them in, we kind of categorize them into different categories, and then we decant them into non-specific bottles, and then get our W Club members from different shops around the country to taste them, and then they rate them out of 100 based on the sort of nose, taste, finish, and then just overall impression. And those scores are correlated, so it's a genuinely, they're not being, all the scores are based not off of price point, off of anything, brand perceptions or regions. It's just by the quality of the liquid and what people think of the night. So I think of it on the night. So it's a really fun way to kind of decide these awards. And I know, I'm sure there are a few other places that do this similar thing, but we're the best at doing it. So yeah, it's great. I won't, for those of you who might be joining for the first time, because this was a really big selling tasting, please don't be afraid to get your comments and your tasting notes or questions into the chat. And then at the end, I'll be giving out 15% discount on all the whiskies sampled tonight. So that's enough for me anyway, folks. The first off we're going to start with is our blended category. So the winner of that was Black Bottle. So Declan Corcoran, who's on the call, is gonna talk us through that. Declan, in a second, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself and for everyone watching. But first, I'm just going to bring up the gold medalists in that category. So the whiskies that finished, the gold medalists are put in no specific order in the blended category, were the Lochfine Blend, Bushmills Black Bush, and Black Bottle Alchemy Series, and Dean Oak. So that's another one. So you got a gold medal in that category as well. So congratulations, Declan. So do you want to introduce yourself, Declan, before we jump into the whiskey?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name's Declan. Well, first off, I work for CBH Spirits. So for those of you who don't know who CBH are, which you might have heard of Distell more commonly as of recent years, but we have 3 distilleries in our company. So we've got Deanston, Tobermory, and Bunnahabhain, and then we also make Leitchig, which is at Tobermory. So yeah, it's interesting starting off in Black Bottle because I can't really tell you exactly about each, the specifics of what it's comprised of exactly, but it'll include those distilleries from our company. I mean, traditionally Black Bottle had a lot of Islay malt in there, and yeah, with when it was actually acquired by at the time of acquiring Black Bottle in the company back before Burn Stewart kind of times, it's actually funny because Bunnahabhain was a sort of side part to buying Black Bottle. So to acquire Black Bottle, it was required that Bunnahabhain came with it. So back in the 80s when blends were so massive, yeah, it was a different time, and obviously now you would. It's funny to think of it then because of how big Bunnahabhain is in our portfolio, and that's what most people will know us for. But yeah, actually, the whiskey shop are an ex-employer of mine. So me and Luke used to work together, sitting beside each other in the office. So yeah, we actually managed to get some work done whilst talking about music and Ireland and Gaelic football and all that. So
Yeah, no, they were fun
yes,
times. I think we were more productive when we worked from home for that reason.
yeah, probably. Yeah. So, but it was nice to be in the office together. But yeah, I've not. It's been a while since we caught up. So yeah, I used to do some of these tastings actually before. I guess it was actually kind of before you'd taken on in the W Club. I was
Yeah.
kind of hosting some of these tastings. But yeah, it's nice to be back on. So yeah, if you've got your black bottle in front of you, I can tell you a little bit about the history of it. So you'll see on the front of the bottle as I've got here. You can see that it is a black bottle. It's got 1879 on the front. So it was actually the Graham brothers who were born in Torfins, which is in the northeast. So it was Gordon David and Charles Graham, who were tea blenders. So interestingly enough, they moved from tea blending to uh, try their hand at blending whiskey. So um, yeah, now Black Bottle has, like I was talking about, with it comprised a lot of the Islay malt. It does have a lot of Bunnahabhain Moynier in there, so you'll get that smoky element coming through. And there's quite a nice sherry kind of influence there, smoky peaty flavors, and your classic spice nut, like you'd get from Bunnahabhain, for example. But it's got quite a high proportion of malt, comprising of the blend. So that's always nice. But yeah, this is from across Islay, the Highlands and Speyside now. Uh, so yeah, it's down at 40%. I would probably leave sort of peatier ones and a tasting to the end, but it's with the lineup we have, it's probably best to start on blends for that reason that it's down at 40%. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, it's it's really interesting for anyone. I've put the lineup in the chat for anyone who's wondering, because I know some of the regulars like to pre-pour. So we are, you mentioned obviously starting with the blend there, Declan. So we are starting with the black bottle, then we'll go to the Rylaw, then the Glasgow 1770 peated, then the G&M Discovery, Glenrothes, then Balblair 12, and then we're going to finish on the W Club Whiskey of the Year, which is not a secret. So, but yeah, the Deanston 18. So, and
yeah,
as Bob's pointed out, I've said 12 instead of 21. So yeah, my apologies. It is the Balblair 21. So yeah, this is really interesting. I know I've been trying to avoid saying this while you were talking there, Declan. But there's
uh,
something really Christmassy about this dram. I don't know what it is,
yeah.
but it's
I
kind of the
think
perfect dram for a night like tonight.
yeah, definitely. We talk a lot about that at Bunnahabhain. You've got that kind of Christmas cake, quite rich, warming, spicy. But yeah, in particular, Black Bottle's got that. I think it's a great blend. It's got a really nice body to it, and it works well as a dram. Just sitting like, I think it's a great one to start on actually for the first
Mm.
dram. I was pouring the full bottles out there, and I remember that it's probably best to just stick to the half bottles just now of these wee drams. But yeah, it's got a really nice body to it and spice and Christmassy kind of nutmeggy thing going on. We do stuff with it with obviously with it being a blend. There's a lot of sort of chance to use it for cocktails, and we do a lot of nice serves with it. One we do a lot is a black bottle iced tea, which is nice with
Mm.
the smoky element and the with the tea, sort of peach iced tea going on. We make some kind of like smoky old fashioned with cinnamon syrup, and obviously with part of the distribution we have is with Angostura, so we use a lot of sort of Angostura bitters and uh, aside with our blend and malts to make some nice wee cocktails. So yeah, no, I think people are always quite sometimes can be quite funny about making cocktails with certain whiskies. I think it's
Yeah.
great to make cocktails with all kinds of whiskies of different ages and prices. But yeah, for this one, it's perfect for serves.
I can really see the iced tea really working, especially there's something, it's not just what you described, but also there is kind of a herbally note to it on the finish, like almost like an Earl Grey or something.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I can definitely. And we've got a couple of comments there. Andrew says on a recent visit to Islay Port Ellen Bar on the main street, everyone in the pub was drinking Black Bottle, not Ardbeg, not Bunna, etc. Great value. If the locals are drinking it, you know you're onto a winner. So I think that's a really good point. Like visiting a wine region and drinking the wine the locals are drinking in the pub. That's a great shout, Andrew. So that's the a high compliment. So we mentioned that the Andean Oak was it was a gold medalist, and last year a gold medalist was the Black Bottle 10. So this is the range has been a serial sort of achiever in these awards. Do you want to tell us a bit about those two while everyone's kind of sipping away on this one?
Yeah, the Andean oak's really interesting. It's not something that I've seen a lot in the whiskey industry using kind of like Colombian oak, but it's got a really interesting character to it. Aside from that, we also do a captain's cask, which was kind of more of a limited edition, but that was with rum. I had a rum finish. Um, and then, yeah, the 10-year-old is obviously the aged version, which I think you'd said that was a gold medal last year. And then the original won last year as well, didn't
Yeah,
it? So,
yeah.
um, yeah, so it's the 10 is even at the 10-year-old range, it's got a slightly higher proportion of malt in it, and it's also obviously aged higher, and it's still at a really affordable price point. So, yeah, I think the value for money for Black Bottle, I mean, it's amazing. It's always really nice to see it on an optic in a bar, and yeah, it's kind of got that old school feel about it, and yeah, it's just super value for money for me, and yeah, I love it.
No, definitely. And you're speaking of value for money. So all the whiskies we're trying tonight will get 15% off after this tasting. But for the next 11 months or so, all the winners and gold medalists will get 10% off for W Club Premium members. So that includes the Andean Oak as well for anyone who's looking to pick up a bottle of that. The black bottle itself is normally 36 pounds on our website, but obviously you'll get 15% off that price for after at the end of this tasting. So a nice kind of one to pick up maybe for Christmas. You've got until Monday to order whiskies to get them to you ahead of Christmas, folks. From our website anyway. Micah said, got the smoke on the nose instantly. Get dried fruit, herby feel, very smooth. Mark says, every evening, everyone. Evening, Mark. I'm getting custard slice notes, but I did eat one, so not sure. And Cam says, do we have the codes for these bottles just to see if either of there was something contributed to my ratings? Yeah, so that's a great question. So by the bottle codes, for anyone who's wondering, that means that the ones when you taste them in the blind tasting, they're all given an anonymous code. And I will put a link now in the chat, which is to our awards page. And if you scroll down to the end of that page, you'll find there's a little form, and if you type in the code like A7, it will tell you what whiskey that was. It won't tell you the scores. The scores are totally anonymized. That's an agreement with the brands. Before they enter, a few of the brands said do not share the codes or the results, which I respect. But if you've kept count of how you scored it yourself in the tasting, you'll be able to match up which one you tried. So yeah, the bottle codes are there. So Declan, before we move on, because I'm conscious we've got to get you back on later on for discuss Deanston 18, but also that there's five more whiskies to drink. Is there anything else you wanted to impart about Black Bottle before we move on to the Rilo?
No, I think I've gone over everything really that I was wanting to talk about. Yeah, I'll be around for Deanston 18 later, so yeah, I'll catch you then.
Marvelous, folks, and don't be afraid to get your questions in. Even if about Black Bottle, even after we move on, we can always revert back to Declan. So I'll leave you on Whiskey Slayer's comment, which is porridge and a whiff of smoke on the nose, palate oak, cooking chocolate. Cooking chocolate's a great one. I actually wouldn't have got that myself, but now that you say it, definitely jumps out. Well, thank you, Declan, and we'll grab you back on in a few minutes.
Cool, thanks. See you in a bit.
So now we're introducing Daniel from Inch Journey. You should be able to unmute yourself there, Daniel.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much. Sorry, I've not used Zoom in a very long time. I think the last time I used Zoom was probably the COVID days, so I got a little bit nervous there when I was queued to do something on the screen. So no disasters yet, so let's see how this goes. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've just taken out my little sample bottle of Inch Daily Rylaw from the beautiful set that was sent to my house The only thing I will say is that there's two things on here that I don't quite agree with, and I'll tell you why. It says Inchtainey Rylaw Vintage 2018 Lowland Grain Scotch Whisky. It is, of course, a Lowland Grain Scotch Whisky, and we have to call it a Grain Scotch Whisky because of the rules and regulations set by the SWA. However, we like to call it a Scottish Rye Whisky. Scottish Rye Whisky is something that we've tried to make our own over the past, kind of 3 years. We are a very modern, unconventional distillery. We're just about to turn 10 years old this month, actually. Christmas Eve 2015 was when we first started producing whiskey. Um, and we have got no history and no heritage, so we have no other option but to look ahead, to look into the future. So that's what our mission is. Our mission is to use technology to drive as much flavor into the whiskey as possible. So when we were discussing what our inaugural release would be back, oh, 5 years before 2023, we were wondering what we were going to do. And we thought, you know what, we've made a big statement here. We've said that we want to be this kind of disruptor in the Scotch whisky category. We want to do something a little bit differently. Let's release a Scottish rye whisky. So Rylaw was first released back in 2023. This is a brand new vintage that we have here, and I'm going to come on to a little bit info why this is different from our first one in a little bit. But let's get down to the whiskey, okay? So when I say Scottish rye whiskey, I mean that it has a mash bill of 53% malted rye, 47% malted barley, okay? It's aged for 5 years in 100% American virgin oak, specifically from the Appalachian Mountains, Appalachian. You can say it either way, depends where you're from. I'm going to say Appalachian. And that was different from what we did for the first vintage, where we used oak from the Ozark Mountains. And that one little change in the whiskey made a massive impact, not only on the flavour, but on the mouthfeel of the whiskey. So if you've not tried it already, I'm going to encourage you guys to do. On the nose, there is a lot of vanilla, a lot of caramel from the virgin oak, of course, a little bit of rye spice. If you're familiar with rye, and you've probably tried varieties from America, from Canada, where they're maybe 100% rye, and they're very powerful. They're not harsh. That's not the right word, but they're very, very spicy. But there's many things that we do to kind of like bring that spicy level down. The main one being is that it's got a high malt content in the mash bill, 47%, locally grown Fife rye and Fife barley. We're based in Fife. So that kind of brings me back on what I was saying about Lowland, because when we, of course, we are part of the Lowlands, but we like to say we're part of Fife, a really kind of up and coming kind of sub-region appellation of the Lowland region that we're very proud to kind of shout about. And when we make whiskey, we try and make it as differently as possible. But obviously, there's certain rules and regulations that, restrict us from doing, too much. But I want to talk about our method, okay? So our method, we, at the very start of the whiskey making process, we have a thing called a hammer mill, okay? And the hammer mill grinds the cereals down to a very fine powder consistency. And the benefit of that is that you're extracting the maximum amount of cereal flavors in the whiskey. And because we use that method, it means that we can't use a mash bill. Because we don't have the husk intact with the cereal, we don't have that natural filtration system that is needed from when you're draining the mash tun. So we have a thing called a mash filter. Now, there's only two distilleries in Scotland that has a mash filter, us and Tianick. In fact, our mash filter is a kind of hand-me-down from Tianick. We got their old one, and we've put it to good use. It's still going strong. But the benefit of using the mash filter is that we are able to get a higher sugar content in our wort, which leads to a higher alcohol yield in our fermentation, which then leads to more flavour. I'm kind of conscious that I'm been talking a little bit and people haven't maybe tried the whiskies, but I've seen that there's a couple of comments in the chat as well. So
Yeah,
look,
we can
happy to
come
answer
on to that.
anything.
That's a really good really good thorough overview, Daniel. The I was thinking when I was making the labels that there might be an issue with the thing, but we made a design choice a long time ago with these sample packs that the categories and the bottles have to match the categories on our websites, and the categories and the websites follow other specific guidelines. So even though I agree with you, but in terms of, would like to have called it a rye or like to have said it as five whiskey. Hopefully someday if you carry on doing what you're doing, we will be able to categorize it that way. So
That's the
you
dream.
won a gold medal last year for the inaugural Rye Law release
That's right.
in this, and I think some people on here will have been on the tasting with we did with Scott, which was I think also last year, around the sample room range that he launched exclusively with the whiskey shop. And
Yeah.
Scott has been on the W Club Decanted podcast this summer, which is a really fascinating episode, and we talk about a lot what you touched on there around the hammer mill and different kind of inspirations for mash bills. So if people
Yeah.
are enjoying this and want to learn more, which I highly recommend you do, it's worth checking out that chat with Scott. Not that you also don't have fantastic stuff to offer, but that goes on for, as you know, as a colleague of his, that chat goes on for more than an hour. So
Yeah, he's got
the
he's so knowledgeable, Scott, and he's a great personality as well. So it makes really good watching. So definitely check this out. Check it out after for
yeah,
sure. Someone said actually in the chat that there's a note of cornflakes. Now I know that there's like a certain kind of level of manipulation when someone says it smells like something, and then you go to nose the whiskey, and you're like, actually that's right, but I am getting cornflakes on this. Um, so yeah, hope everyone loves it. And if there's any more questions, then
yeah,
happy to answer them.
there's a lovely spice to the end of it, and Alistair says smells and tastes like homemade Christmas cake. Martin says
Nice.
definitely vanilla and cornflakes with a bit of banana, as you touched on. I definitely
Bit
get the
banana, yeah.
banana. Specifically, what's that cereal where you get the dried hard banana bits in it?
Oh yeah, is
Um,
it fruit and fiber?
Fruit and
Maybe.
fiber, is it?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know if I've ever had it or had it for a
Yeah,
very
old
long
school there.
time, but I just got suddenly flashed into my mind. And Corey says very fruity, not unlike myself. And Alice says I love this, but do love a rye. Camille says yeah, totally on the nose for sure. Totally feel the extra alcohol percent from the last dram. The rice stands out, dry black pepper, aniseed, then shortbread on the finish. For me, shortbread's a really good tasting note for the finish as well.
Yeah, that
Surprisingly
is really
easy on the
good.
palate. Of course, it's a grain whiskey, so sweeter. As you were saying, it's technically not a grain whiskey. The yet you get the wood cereals and spice comes through. Lovely mouthfeel taste. Getting more cereal. I got Cheerios, said Robert Lang.
Mm, great note. Love that.
So
I'm definitely going to use that.
in terms of what I mean, you've touched on it already, but I suppose
Yeah.
the point the point in the comment there is one that makes it worth bringing up. So because it just so we're on this same page, because it's the Scottish Whisky Association regulations, you technically have to class this as a single grain whiskey or a grain
That's
whiskey.
right.
But it's built like the mash bill and everything is specifically to a rye whiskey. And I could be wrong on this. It's not column distilled, is it?
So we've actually got a really special still in our still house, a Loman still. So if you're unfamiliar with what a Loman still is, it's a cross between a pot and a column still. This is where the secondary distillation happens when we make Rylaw. So you've got the benefit of the pot still at the bottom where you've got a lot of copper contact, so it makes a really light spirit. And then you've also got the benefit of the filtration system of the column where you can eradicate any of the harsh flavour and notes to again make the spirit taste a lot lighter and a lot more elegant. It's wonderful. It's a very big still, and we only make Ryloth for 2 weeks per year. So for the rest of the year, it's just a very expensive, shiny, fancy ornament sitting in the corner of the still house. But it looks great and it makes great tasting rye whiskey. So I'm not complaining.
Marvelous. So you released. I mean, actually, we'll jump to Paul's question there first. So can which is Paul Fisher in the chat? Can rye be malted, or is is relying on the malt for the mash?
Yeah, so this is malted rye. This is malted rye. And the reason again why we malted the rye was to bring the spice levels down a little bit.
Hmm. Marvelous. I suppose the other question I was going to ask is in the sense that you released two other whiskies this year, which is what Scott was on the podcast to discuss.
That's
In
right.
addition to this, and you mentioned obviously only running that still for 2 weeks of the year to make Ryloth. So you make
That's right.
a various other types of whiskey. Can you tell us a bit
Yeah.
about those other two whiskies?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I get into the actual the whiskies that we've released this year, it's worth noting that at the distillery we actually make 9 different styles of whiskey. So Rye Law is the name of our rye whiskey. King Glassy, which is the whiskey you're referring to, Luke, is the name of our peated single malt. We have our official house single malt, the Inchdairney. The first one's going to be releasing in 2029, when it turns 12 years old. We also have an experimental range called the Prinlaws, where we get 2 weeks per year to do whatever we want. So to give you an example, we've made whiskey from oats. We've made whiskey, like a Scottish sour mash whiskey, which is really exciting. We just released some new make samples of that. We've done a variation on like an Irish pot still whiskey, which was quite cool. It did upset a few people over in Ireland, but hopefully it kind of lives up to expectation. And we also do our trading malts. So that's kind of how we built our business before we released our official brand, Encased Goods. So we made a peated single malt and an unpeated single malt that we traded on the open market to build our business. We didn't start with a gin. We didn't start with any other category. We wanted to focus on whiskey. We're actually quite a big distillery. I know I'm going on a little bit here. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but we've got the capabilities to produce over 4 million litres of alcohol per year. We're currently operating at probably about half of that just now. So we've got quite a big future ahead of us. The whiskey that we released this year, King Glassy, our repeated single malt, it was the inaugural single malt coming out of Inchdairney. We launched it in May. We had 2 expressions of King Glassy. We had one which was double matured, which is an 8-year-old peated single malt. So the double matured had 5 years in ex-bourbon, 3 years in Amontillado sherry, first fill Amontillado sherry. And we also had another expression called raw, which is exactly the same whiskey, exactly the same age statement, but the only difference was in the wood maturation. So it was 100% ex-bourbon, and that was something for the whiskey geeks out there, to really kind of taste the character of the distillery spirit without taking it in a different direction by putting it into a sherry cask. So we're just getting started. I understand we've got a lot to come, so hopefully you guys can follow us on that journey as the years go on.
Yeah, marvelous. That Amontillado one was tremendous. We were at your distillery opening. I was fortunate enough to attend with a couple of my
Hmm.
colleagues. A couple
I'm
even
glad you were. Like
three.
I never even got to go to that. So,
I got someone else's invite passed down,
oh, did you?
the middle child or the youngest child getting hand-me-downs.
Yeah, mine's got lost in the
And
post somewhere. So,
yeah. So, but we tried some cast samples from the main tasting room and the Amontillado one that was, I think, used in cocktails as well in the sample
yeah,
room was really really stunning.
nice.
So yeah, very exciting. We've got some great taste notes comments as well. I suppose taste notes, in the chat there. Martin and Lorraine say, for me, a rather long dry finish makes me reach for the water. Frank D says very accessible for 46.3%. Kevin says the lasting spice I get after the sweetness is gone is cinnamon. That's really interesting.
Nice.
It does like a bit like those cinnamon biscuits that you get. You get them in like Canada or something.
Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about.
A drop of water does not hurt. Brings the sweet banana flavors and mellows down the spice. Bloody lush, says Corey. Can we see why it made the final? So
Thank you.
yeah, brilliant. So is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Actually, I'll bring up the price of this now, just so that customers are aware. And it's worth noting in terms of Mike's comment on reaching the final. The I just drew it back there. So this is actually the same category that won last year. So Leaper's Fork Bourbon, which was our winner for 2024, came out of the this is not a single grain category. It's the alternative mash bill category is officially what it's titled. So it's basically anything that's not a blend or a single malt. And so this has beaten last year's winner out of that category, which is that was a gold medalist this year. So yeah, so this is 85 pounds, and then obviously at the end of this you'll get 15% off that for joining this tasting.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say before we kind of slowly started to move on, Daniel?
Nothing else to cover off. I just wanted to show everyone the bottle, which is this one here. So if you've not heard of our distillery, you'll probably recognize the silhouette. As you can see, it's quite kind of stand out there. Very proud of it. It tells the Inchdairney story. There's more about that on our Instagram, but Thank you very much for everyone for coming here tonight and trying it. I really appreciate it.
Marvelous. Well, thank you for joining, Daniel. You're welcome to stick around and try the rest of the drams.
Oh, don't worry, I will.
Marvelous. And yeah, if you want to chime in again, just give me a little wave. William says, beautiful bottle. And yeah, on that podcast, Scott goes in about the kind of bottle, the hammer mill on the top, and the kind of the way it was made to kind of look through. It's gorgeous. I think I have one behind me here, which is I think the last edition. So yeah, great whiskey. As was the first two. So we're off to a really good start, folks. I hope you'll all agree. As Chris Chalker says, that's really nice stuff. Genuinely impressed. So marvelous. So no pressure, Seb. Or Sebastian. I'm gonna unmute you. I hope you don't mind me calling you Seb. But obviously returning guest as well. You were on here. Was it earlier this year? Was it last year? Presenting the Glasgow distillery.
I think it was earlier this year. You know what? It's been a long year, Luke. I'm not gonna lie. Very much looking forward to Christmas and a bit of a break, but it's been a brilliant year, and it's great to return.
Marvelous. Well, it's really great to have you back on. Obviously, for those who might not have been on that call, do you want to give a kind of a rundown on yourself? I know you're our near neighbours in Hillington. So yeah, proper Glasgow distillery. So yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself before we jump into the whiskey?
Sure. Yeah, I've our distillery's been making single malt for 10 years, and I've been working at the distillery for about 8 years now, 8.5 or so. I head up the sales team, the marketing team, and I'm part of the blending team as well. So putting together all the different kind of products that we put out there. We make the range of Glasgow 1770 single malts, a range of gins, vodkas, rums, and a blended malt too. So a small distillery, a team of 16 staff, but certainly a busy team, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you're obviously people who were on that aforementioned tasting will have tried a range of your SKUs. But the Glasgow Triple Distilled whiskey won a gold medal in this same category. So that's even though we're only tasting the one tonight, that's recognition on two bottles. As the only person in the world who's seen the scores, I can tell you it was very, very close. You could have nearly reversed the two Glasgows, and either one of them would have won. So that's a testament to your liquid. That's also one of the non-age statement sort of category was single malt category was the largest entry of categories, along with the 12 and under category. So you know you've beaten a lot of competition. As Dalmore Cigar Malt in there as a gold medalist, and the Sexton, an Irish whiskey from made by Bushmills. As well. So there's some really good competition in there, and it's also not just great to see a local distillery winning the top prize, but also a peated whiskey coming out of that category, which I think is, you know, I mean, I'm a lover of peat. I'm sure a lot of people on the call but it can divide opinions. So it's interesting that also won the category. Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's cool. Really, really cool. I mean, when we started the distillery, we weren't really necessarily interested in just making a typical lowland style of single malt. We wanted to showcase that one kind of contemporary urban producer can make a range of different flavors within the one small distillery. So our core range of single malts comprise the triple distilled that you mentioned, what we call the original, which is a double distilled unpeated whiskey, and this double distilled peated single malt. So we're one producer, but we're making three very different styles of single malt every year. And that kind of showcases that wide range of flavor that we want to hit with our different styles of whiskey. So we're making these really smooth, delicate triple distilled styles, these big, rich, fruity double distilled unpeated whiskies, and these kind of waxy, oilier, big smoky styles like this peated one we're trying tonight. Just to give a little bit of background on kind of Glasgow Distillery, Glasgow 1770 as a producer, you know, like I say, we're a team of 16. That includes six distillers, so six full-time distillers. We're making about 200,000 LPA a year, so a small producer. We also have our own in-house cooper who makes all of our casks and looks after them for us as well. And the rest of us work in logistics, finance, sales, marketing, you know, the kind of things you need to run a small business. So really a small outfit located on the outskirts of Glasgow in picturesque Hillington that you're very familiar with, Luke. And yeah, we basically are just a bunch of whiskey geeks making great whiskies, charging accessible price points, and trying to put stuff out there that we'd really want to buy ourselves. We take the name 1770 for the single malts, which is a date that the original Glasgow Distillery Company were founded. They were one of the first in Scotland to build a distillery and get a license for distilling. And they were one of 30 whiskey distilleries in Glasgow at one point. So Glasgow used to have this real big like heritage and history of whiskey making, much like Speyside or well, Campbelltown used to be, I guess. But one by one, they all closed. And the original Glasgow distillery, which was known as Dundestill at the time, they changed the name. They closed in 1902. So the gap between 1902 and 2012, when we were founded, there was kind of a dearth of single malt from Glasgow. So the whole mission of the distillery was to bring single malt back to Glasgow. And this year, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So we released a couple of 10-year-old single casks this year, a real milestone year. So it's been absolutely brilliant. And yeah, kind of a little bit like Daniel said earlier, we're kind of just getting started, but we're feeling really happy with the way things are going so far.
Marvelous. Well, it's great to see both two kind of young distilleries in the winning these awards. I was going to say two Lowland distilleries, but I didn't want Daniel having a go at me.
Oh no,
So
don't get him started.
We've got Kevin has said obviously more in your face nose with peat, but tempered by a nutty almond flavor. Maraschino cherries and a hint of smoke on the nose. Not typical Lowland. Cigar smoke, says Graham. Absolutely delicious, says Daniel. And smokingly good dram. Oh, sorry, stonkingly good dram. Peat and PX, a heavenly match. Sweet smoke and long finish. Christian has said just about to say the same. I was initially confused by the sweet smoke. This is lovely though. Nose, light burnt smoke, Christmas cake, pine nuts. Tried them all and they never last long. I presume by them all you mean all the Glasgow range as opposed to the ones on the tasting tonight, Whisky Slayer. Proper hoofers for the price range. Keep it going. As a peat fan, I'm loving this. Don't know much about your distillery, but congrats on a cracking dram. Light peat and smooth. Really like the smoke on this. Only recently got into whiskey and can already tell I'm a big fan of peat. Mike says, love the original 1770. This is a delicate palate and nose, good oily feel, getting sweetness and a good finish. Fruitcake on the development. It is incredibly complex dram, I must say. It's every time I go back to it, as we've been chatting, I do get a kind of a different layer behind that peat smoke because your brain initially hits the peat, and then you do get that nuttiness. You do get like a different kind of then dried fruits. There's a hell of a lot going on there. It's an incredibly balanced dram. In terms of the apologies if you've touched on this already, but we've had so much information so far in the tasting. But so it's PX in there. Well, can you describe that cask makeup or the how is it a finish and how the different components come together for this one?
Sure thing. So in terms of just the way we put this particular whiskey together, so it's obviously it's 1/3 of our production style. So we make this style of whiskey, as in the actual spirit, the new make spirit, for about 5 months every year. And this is using malted barley that's peated with Highland peat. So it's using peat from Aberdeenshire. So you get the kind of rich campfire barbecue kind of smoke coming through into the whiskey. And for me, it's like smoky barbecue sauce on the nose. You get that sweet smoke, that sweet peat, that kind of rich meaty quality, dark fruits. In terms of just the spirit side, for a minute, this for our peated single malts, we have a low cut point. So the hearts are collected between 72 and 57% ABV. So it's the lower cut point of our production style. So you get this lovely oily kind of tactility into the spirit itself. To put that into perspective, our triple distilled whiskies have a very high collection strength, so between 85 and 75% ABV, and our unpeated double distilled has a kind of medium cut point. But this is very much the lower, richer, oilier style of the whiskies we make at Glasgow. This particular product, this is part of our core range, 46% ABV. It's been matured initially in virgin American white oak casks, and then it's been finished for 8 months to a year, changes batch to batch, in PX sherry casks. So you get that lovely balance of smoke and of sherry kind of coming together, that lovely richness. And what I really like about this particular expression is the balance, because you get the smoke and you get the sherry, but they don't dominate. One doesn't dominate. They're just like sitting in nice harmony. The kind of sweet smoke, meaty quality. It's like kind of ribs on a barbecue with the smoke and the fat kind of hitting up at you. And it's one of our most popular whiskies. Part of the core range, £52 a bottle as well. In terms of the malt that we use, it's a 50 ppm malt. So it's a high level of peat, but it's using that Highland kind of aromatic, smoky kind of flavor.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I'm sure you saw it yourself in terms of the Philip's question in the chat. And then Kevin has said any about the age. Have you any kind of comment on the age?
Yeah, so the core range, what we call the signature range, the triple distilled, the peated, the original, they vary in age from between 3 to 5, 6 years old. So it just changes batch to batch. And for the signature range, we're not really trying to just use consistently stock of a particular age. We're just trying to hit a flavor profile that we're looking for. So some of the spirit in here will be towards that younger end, 3+ years old, and some of it will be going into 6, maybe some 7-year-old stock in there as well. We do have a range of age statement single malts in our portfolio, some 8-year-olds, some 6-year-olds, things like that. But this core range product, it's a non-age statement. But yeah, 3 to 6 would probably be the average of what's going in there. Like I say, it changes year to year.
Hmm. No, yeah, and you held up the bottle there. Could you tell us a bit about the bottle itself? Because it's quite a striking bottle as well. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, so it's a heavy bottle. It's a big one. It's got these like ribbed sides, I guess you call it, on it, bespoke glass. Kind of represents the Art Deco kind of ethos of Glasgow and the kind of art direction taken from the city, showcasing the kind of architecture that we have. And for us, it was always important, yes, to have a nice bottle that stands out on shelf, but the most important thing is obviously what's going in there because a bottle's going to maybe encourage someone to buy something once, but the proof's in the juice. I'm sure you'd agree, Luke.
Yeah.
If it's not up to scratch, someone's not going to buy that again. So as much as we love talking about the bottle and how it looks and the branding and stuff, it's for us the main focus really is on the quality of the whiskey we're making.
No, definitely, and that shows because obviously, as we discussed at the start, and anyone on the call who would have judged in these awards, the folk had no idea what they were drinking, and there was no bottle there. So you definitely tick both boxes in that regard. We got Tim and Sarah saying not normally a fan of peat, but liking this a lot. Kevin says it's incredible for such a young whiskey. Graham says loving this. Still have samples from tasting earlier in the year. Missed on the night. Gonna have to open them now and try them. So brilliant. Yeah, no, this is. Is there anything? I know you mentioned what a bumper year it's been for you. Is there what's next? Is there anything we can keep an eye out going forward?
For sure. So we have the core range. This is one of the products. We have a range of age statement releases which come out every year. We have an experimental range of the small batch series, which is just really cool, interesting cask finishes, and some new ones will be coming out in March. And our next cask strength release of the peated, so of the one we're trying right now, which will be about 59 to 60%, will be coming out in February. So if you like this one, you should really try the cask strength version because it's basically this but on steroids.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're a lot of us are cast strength crusaders on here. So yeah, that's definitely one I'll be hunting down. So as we mentioned, £52. We get 15% off this at the end of the tasting. There's loads of comments coming in there for how good it is. But for being a member of the premium tier of the W Club, which everyone on this call is, you'll get 10% off the triple distilled 1770 as well. So you can pick up both bottles as well, folks, if you want. You're saving on both. Daniel has said, is the small batch range the bourbon cask you recently released? Question mark.
The bourbon cask is a new annual release. So it's an 8-year-old first full bourbon. It's a lightly peated single malt, so equal parts peated and unpeated double distilled malt coming together at 54%. And that's coming out every year. The small batch series is more a rotating door of one-offs. So that comes out a couple of times each year. But there will be another version of the bourbon coming out next year as well. So try them all.
And you're not open to, you don't have a visitor center, do you?
No, we don't have a visitor center, but we do host tours, but we only do 2 to 3 a month. So we have small scale tours, 8 people at a time. You have 7 whiskies, spend 2 to 2.5 hours in the distillery, see the lab where we do a lot of our new product development, see the production, meet the production team, fill a cask, try whiskey from a cask, and spend time with our cooper and make your own cask as well. So it's well worth getting on for sure. We just released new dates for it actually. And I think half of them are sold out for the first half of next year. So check it out on the website.
Wow, that's pretty cool. No, it sounds really exciting. Listen, Sebastian, thank you so much for coming on and presenting the whiskey. We've got, as I said, mentioned already, really great comments in there. Even Paul has just said thumbs up, Glasgow Distillery. So yeah, been very. I know a lot of both people at the whiskey shop and people in the W Club have been really enjoying your brand over recent years as they've kind of gotten more familiar with it. So yeah, keep up the good work and please do hang around. Be good to get your thoughts on the other drams here tonight. So yeah, marvelous. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Luke. Looking forward to the next whiskies.
Brilliant. So next up is the uh, 12 and under category, which is won by G&M Discovery. So I'm just gonna uh, unmute Luke. So I don't know if because that was we've got a couple of peated so far, so I don't know if it's worth a wee palate cleanser. If anyone's got some water there, or Luke, do you know any tricks? Isn't it? Don't they say the back of your own arm is meant to kind of
Back, yeah, yeah,
reset
back of your
your
own arm for sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, a little swirl around of water. Should anybody be partaking any dark chocolate and stuff like that, some heavier cocoa content chocolate, that's always a good one. Can't say that applies for Mars bars and bounties, but definitely the darker, higher cocoa content. I think somebody's just mentioned about Diet Coke in there. That's a new one on me, but I will take your word for that on that. And, yeah, we'll get stuck in.
Marvelous. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Luke. Really interesting release or kind of category winner, because because of your obviously one of the world's most famous independent bottlers. But obviously a lot of our winners, both tonight and in the past, have been kind of from kind of established brands. Like this, but before we jump into the dram itself, do you want to maybe tell us a bit about yourself and your role at G&M?
Of course, yeah, certainly. So, as everyone's gathered, my name is Luke. I am the UK sales manager for Gordon and MacPhail. So I look after our sort of portfolio of spirits within the UK. As not only independent bottlers, we've been established since 1895, but we are also the owners of two distilleries now. One that I can just see over your right shoulder there, which is Ben Romac and stuff like that, was a little 10-year-old bottle, which is just there. So Ben Romac is something that we acquired back in 1993 and spent 5 years doing it up and bringing back to life to lay down the first casks under our ownership from 1998 as a lightly peated sort of Speyside single malt whiskey. And then the other one is a more recent distillery that's just sort of turned 3 years old back in May, which is the Cairn Distillery, which is based in Grantown-on-Spey. So we have the luxury of not only being sort of well-established independent bottlers that have worked with over 100 plus different distilleries and stuff over that sort of period of time. But we also have the pleasure of the pleasure of owning two distilleries. One very, very old-fashioned, old-school distilling style, which is Ben Romac, and then a very more sort of modern sort of style and stuff coming from the Cairn in Grant. So yeah, a nice little business mix.
Marvelous. And the one that's won today, I mean, we'll jump into that now. But obviously, we were mentioning in the when Daniel was on about having his colleague Scott on the podcast. We actually had Stephen Rankin on our most recent episode. So if anyone looks it up, the W Club Decanted podcast, you'll see that's the most recent in the feed, which was a really good chat. And he goes deep in on both distilleries, but also G&M as a brand. We also this year had Glenrothes episode of that as well, which this is 11-year-old bottling of that. So yeah, do you want to maybe tell us a bit about the bottle we're going to try today? Not just this liquid, but also the Discovery range in total.
Yeah, of course. So the Discovery range that came about, we had a big rebrand. People that have been on the chat that have followed Gordon and MacPhail for a number of years. We had a fairly substantial rebrand back in sort of 2018. And part and parcel of that was to sort of separate our sort of offerings and stuff into sort of more accessible ranges. So the Discovery range was really created to offer, that first sort of step into the world of sort of independent bottlings, where people could sort of really sort of focus on a couple of things really with regarding to sort of tastes, aromas, different flavor profiles in essence. So the one that we're looking at today with the Glenrothes 11-year-old, as you can say, and see if you can see that in the on the bottle there, as a sort of purple top and branding. Now, anything in the purple packaging is basically sherry cask matured. Anything that we do within the green sort of tubes is bourbon sort of casks, and anything that we do in the grey tubes is sort of more of a sort of smoky sort of peated style. So in essence, we do currently at the moment there is an 11-year-old Glenrothes, there is a 10-year-old Milton Duff, and an 11-year-old Bunnahabhain in the sherry lineup for discovery. We then do a Tomatin, which is a 12-year-old, and sort of from 2011 vintage, and an Otterusk 10. But we've done a whole variety of different things from Tormore, Glenallachie, etc., and stuff over the years. And sort of currently within the sort of smoky, the grey packaging, we do a 13-year-old Kalila, which has always been a particular favourite within the market. Sort of 10-year-old heavily peated Bunnahabhain, so more like a Stoichia, which is a very nice one. And also and stuff like that, we do a 12-year-old Lecheg as well, which is a really nice sort of offering. So it's a big sort of sort of a nice sort of entry level range, nice and affordable. That sort of gives people access to a whole world and stuff of flavour, and a really nice sort of stepping stone into the world of independent bottles.
No, marvelous. It's already getting great comments in the chat. Andrew said the Cairn Distillery is worth a visit. Great food and some superb whiskey on offer. Worth a stop if in Speyside. Camille says Gordon MacPhail does not fail. I'm getting Carmack on the nose. Carmack has become in recent digital drams quite a popular tasting note. So I wonder if that's a comment on the demographic of people who join this tasting. The whole Discovery range is excellent. Both the Kalila and the Bunna were fantastic. This Glenrothes is similarly great. Fresh and sweet on the nose, evocative of a walk in open air surrounded by gorse bushes. Banana toffee sweets, 1980s reference. We get sherry, raisin, toffee, caramel on the nose, and taste. You cannot go wrong with Glenrothes, says Carl. Yeah, so there's some really interesting comments there. Corey, Corey was sorry. I apologize, Corey. I take it back. Maybe it's just a regional thing, me being a foreigner and all. So rather than a demographic thing, that was I misspoke. So yeah, and obviously within G&M, you've got this discovery range. You've got a lot going on. And is there anything else you can tell us about in terms of what we can expect to find from you outside of the two distilleries, that is?
Yeah, I mean we've got lots of things sort of coming up. So certainly from the Ben Romack side of things, always some of my favorite releases are the cask strength releases. So do keep your eyes on those. We'll be doing a lot of more single casks over the coming months. We've actually got one that's in situ for you guys at the moment. So hopefully from the start of March to mid-March and stuff for 2026, everyone will be able to keep their eyes peeled for a little exclusive for you ahead of time. There's just plenty of different things coming down the line for us really. We've got on the Cairn side of things. We're just in the throes of tinkering around with an inaugural kind of launch, but the main focus for us was really to kind of wait, ideally until it was 12 years old. That was the original plan and stuff like that, to sit and wait till we've got a really, really good age, sort of behind the whiskey, sort of before releasing, but laying down a lot of casks at the moment. So Ben Romack is very small. We've got two sort of operational stills, and that sort of brings us to around about 500,000 litres a year in terms of spirit. For the Cairn, we can comfortably do a lot more than that. We've got sort of six sort of operational stills, but conservatively at the moment, sort of given the market, we run at about 1 million sort of litres. So just laying down sort of plenty of casks, for the future at the moment from that distillery. But within the independent bottling side of things, certainly there is always something that is coming out, and I think you guys sort of get a pretty good heads up on everything that sort of comes down the line through G&M. Plenty of interesting sort of single casks, from our connoisseur's choice range and upwards. So yeah, everything really ranging from £50 to £125,000 a bottle, depending on how deep your pockets go. But it's a pretty fantastic range to have.
And you mentioned the £125,000. So can you tell us a bit more about that? That was the 1940s world's oldest ever produced whiskey that you sold. Was it about a month ago, 2 months ago?
Yeah, so we had a I suppose we're very lucky in that we've been going since said sort of 1895, and we're a family owned business. We're sort of currently in the fourth sort of generation of family ownership. So the business was originally started by James Gordon and John Alexander MacPhail. They brought a gentleman by the name of John Urquhart into the business, and around about 1915, John became a senior partner, and when the sort of two sort of predecessors sort of passed away. John sort of took that sort of business on, left the moniker of for Gordon and MacPhail on as a bit of a legacy piece to the original founders. But it's been within a family, the Urquhart family, sort of ever since. So we're sort of on fourth generation of that. So it's been sort of really nice for them to bring to life these things. Now, George Urquhart, some of you may be very familiar with, was really one of the, I suppose, the driving force between the sort of single malt sort of evolution, really, of the whiskey industry. That, as most of you will be familiar, was focused on blended Scotch, sort of whiskey back in the day. And George was obsessed with really finding out what would happen if you put sort of spirit into oak for a longer period of time. And ergo, really, by the mid 30s, we were sort of laying down sort of cask to mature, for what was deemed a much longer period at the time. So we have some pretty incredible old casks, and have been able to sort of produce what we call our generations range, which is obviously the oldest whiskies in the world. Occasionally have a little bit of vying of competition for that, from another distillery. But ultimately, we have the oldest age stocks of single malt whiskey in the world, so we're able to produce some pretty amazing things. So yeah, from 1940s and bringing to life in 2025 at Glenlivet, which was, as I said, £125,000 a bottle. I think you guys then took some of that and sold through for us, so that was much appreciated. But yeah, we sold through that within just over a month and a half in total. So an incredible kind of feat for 125 bottles, 124 for trade, and one that went through auction. So yeah, pretty impressive feat from that.
Yeah, no, that is incredible. Um, I think I got to try your Glen Grant 1953 at the start of
Mm,
this year, which is
mm.
another, or early this year anyway, another incredible bottling by you. So it's an incredible liquid library you have, and single cask releases like this that are also more accessible than those other releases we've mentioned in terms of price point and everything, are definitely kind of mean that you kind of tick a lot of boxes. We've got a couple of great comments in there. Duncan says this is thirst quenching, which is dangerous for a whiskey. Whiskey Slayer says butter, toffee, well done, burnt toast. I've never heard of well done toast, but that's good. I'm going to start saying that now in the morning to my partner. It's not burnt, it's well done. Then orange peel on the finish, creamy
Yeah.
and buttery without being too rich or sweet. Balance is fantastic. The best of the night so far, says Andrew.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
So I don't know. That's that's a big statement. We've had some cracking whiskies tonight. Rohit says lovely nose, honey, pears, and bananas. Palate, muted start but strong finish. Red apples, hint of cardamom. Sorry, I'm struggling with it. That's great. Them great tasty notes. Keep them coming. Um, Whiskey Slayer is an interesting question for you, Luke. Always wondered, do you go into the distillery warehouse and are allowed to pick and choose, or is there question mark no-go barrels? Now I believe you've kind of touched on this already in the sense that you fill new make, you buy new make and fill them. Am I correct in that?
Yes, correct. So I suppose one of the big differences between us and a number of other independent bottlers is that we don't buy in the casks and stuff, or sort of get casks and stuff from a secondary market or sort of brokers. We have the kind of luxury of being able to, approach the distilleries that we've worked with for many, 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 many years and get our casks, that are sort of specially made for us, in Jerez and stuff, predominantly in Spain and within sort of Speyside cooperage and stuff where we source for except sort of American casks. And the Jerez, so Antonio Pius Labato, sort of cooperage, make those for us over there. But we have that privilege of being able to take those casks to distilleries and for them to fill. So we're able to control that maturation and stuff of spirit in oak from start to finish, which is quite a privilege.
Mm. No,
So
it
in,
really is, and it's as you say, very unique from a lot of, including ourselves, as you know, as an independent bottler. The whiskey shop, our own brand stuff is obviously not bought in new make and aged. So, but that is a really great question, Whiskey Slayer. So this is normally £67 on our website. You'll be saving 15% off that at the end of the night. And yeah, I'll just list out as well what the other ones in that. So Loch Lomond 12-year-old was a gold medalist in this category. Deanston 12, so another one from Declan's range, got a gold medal in there. And then Annock, which is another one from Stuart's range, who we'll be chatting to next, got a gold medal in that category. So up against some really tremendous whiskies. This was beyond this and the non-age statement, as I mentioned, with the last one were the biggest categories in terms of volume of entries. So you've beaten back some really well established brands. Not that you're not an established brand, but you know what I mean. It's no small feat to win that one. Christian says, question for Luke. I presume he means you. Have you stopped filling casks as reported in the news?
Yeah, so that was quite an interesting one, and stuff that sort of came out. In essence, the answer to that is yes. I think one of the things that was somewhat miscommunicated, that was Gordon MacPhail was stopping independent bottling, and then that caused a bit of a furore within the industry, and people panicking. We have enough stock holding to last, a lot longer than my lifetime, sort of will be, in terms of generations of stock holding. So that side of things won't be sort of drying up any time soon. There's probably an ultimate focus when we'll do sort of slightly sort of older sort of bottlings and stuff. So perhaps not focus on younger bottlings from sort of 8s, 10s, 12s, 15s. There'll be a focus on a higher age statement. But what we wanted to do was to put a focus really into distilling, and that's where obviously the cairn sort of comes in with that sort of 12-year sort of age plan that we talked about sort of slightly earlier, and to be in control of that a little bit every year and year on year. The amount of fillings that you can get as an independent bottler, sort of can often become less and less. And ultimately, you want to make sure that the business, is going for another 130 years on top. So there's ways of future proofing that, and one was to focus slightly more on the distilling route for that. So whilst the answer is yes, currently that is the current status, that we've stopped getting new fillings. Certainly, from the amount of stock holding that we have, you won't be in any shortage and stuff of finding Gordon MacPhail products on your shelves for a very, very long time to come.
Marvelous. No, that's a great answer. I suppose before we move on, it's already been mentioned, the distillery at the cairn, but it's been stressed by a bunch of people. I've not had the privilege of attending yet, but apparently that is really quite the experience. Can you just go over that again in terms of the distillery as a dining experience?
Is this with the cairn? Sorry,
With the cairn, yeah.
Yes, yes. So I saw a couple of things sort of pop up and talking about the cairn and the blended malt range that we do. So yes, so the cairn is fully up and running. As I said, we're sort of laying down sort of casks, at the moment. Part and parcel of when we started, what we wanted to do was not go down the same route of offering another gin and things like that. We wanted to do something a little bit different. So at the distillery, what we wanted to do was put in a really nice restaurant. So we have a restaurant called The Gathering, which is some very, very, very nice food. Almost Scottish tapas style is probably the best way that I can describe it. Some very, very nice, focused on local produce. So some really, really nice food that's available there. And whilst you're on the tour, because at the time we didn't have or don't have 12-year-olds or single malt whiskey and stuff to be able to offer to people, we wanted something a little bit different. So we were able to use sort of stock holdings and stuff that we have through Gordon and MacPhail as owners, and create some fantastic sort of blended malts, sort of in-house. So that's called the CRN 57 sort of range, which I think you guys have actually just taken in. So that should be coming in pretty live on your website soon, if not already. And we do a range really between, sort of 12 to 18, sort of 25 to 30s, right the way up to 70 years old, which I still believe is currently the oldest blended malt sort of whiskey in the world. So we have, again, a range for all budgets within that. But that's something that sort of goes together. So it's based in the Cairngorms National Park. Has over the sort of summertime an absolutely fantastic view of the Cairngorms, wonderful site, sort of next to the Spey, well worth visiting if you do the tours, I think, as some people have done. you end up in the top of the building, which is a kind of very unique shape if you have a look at it online. And it is almost a 270 plus degree wraparound view from the top, of the mountains and the Cairngorm. So, a fantastic place to sort of visit. So, yeah, I'd encourage anyone that's not been, please do go, have a look. There's some fantastic, sort of views to be had, fantastic food to be had, and some fantastic whiskey. So no, it's good to get some feedback from people that have been. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that really sounds great. And there is, as you mentioned, there's like at least two or three people in the chat who've been, which is really good. I wanted to ask you about the CRN 57, but I couldn't recall about timings of it release. So I was like, oh, I don't want to say something, and it's under embargo, or whatever.
You're all good,
Because
all good.
yeah, so it's good to see we're safe. I've given it a Google now. I can see Master Malt are already selling it, so I'm gonna have to give some of my colleagues a kick up so that we get it online. But yeah, it looked the bottles for that look fantastic. Ian says stop for lunch in October, amazing place. So Neil says beautiful setting by the river too, and Andrew says there. So it's at least four people I think in the chat so far who've visited
Excellent.
the
Yeah,
distillery.
which is really
Um,
nice to hear.
yeah, really great. So Whiskey Slayer Centauri comes to mind. Sorry, this goes actually a question that's been happening, a discussion that's been happening in the chat about IBs, which I presume is independent bottlers as
The
opposed to
bottlers, yeah.
some sort of interballistic missiles or something. Investing in distilleries, these obviously it has been happening with companies like yourselves, but I mean you were quite early to it. You bought Ben Romack in the 90s, was it?
90s, yeah, so 1990s. So yeah, I think yeah, you're right. I think that there's ultimately always a risk, as an IB, you are not the distillery, at the end of the day and stuff like that. So you could be and stuff like that, at the mercy and stuff like that of the distilleries and stuff that you're buying from. That's not not really the case, but a feasible, a plausible thing. So a lot of, I suppose, IBs that have had the opportunity to sort of purchase distilleries or bring distilleries back to life and kind of go down that route have taken that opportunity, to do so. So there's always that sort of element of future-proofing your business. And one of the ways of future-proofing the business, especially for an IB, is basically to have that distillery. So yeah, there are a few now that have gone down that route, but that's a great question.
Vertical integration of the firm, I believe they call it. So brilliant. Well, Luke, thank you so much for your time. It's a cracking dram, and please do stay on and try the next couple of drams with us. And yeah, is there anything you wanted to add before we move on to Stuart?
No, I think that's it and stuff like that. And thank you, obviously, very much for everyone for coming on this evening and for your feedback. It's much appreciated. So yeah, on to the next. Thank you.
Brilliant, and well done on a tremendous dram. Marvelous. So we'll come on to Stuart. Thank you for patiently waiting. You're not the last whiskey, but you're the last person because obviously Declan's chatted already. So it's really great to have you on. We're for those following at home, we're jumping a category here. In the sense that we're jumping over the 18 years and under, because that's the category the whiskey of the year has come out of. So we're going to finish on that. So we're going to the over 18s category. So yeah, that is the winner of that is the Balblair 21, not 12 as I erroneously typed at the start. So Stuart, you're got a very Christmassy backdrop, a bit like Daniel as well. So can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself and Balblair as a distillery?
Of course, yeah. No, I think Daniel kind of won with the Christmas tree as opposed to just some twinkly lights in behind me, and this fake collection of whiskey that doesn't actually belong to. I'm kidding. Yeah, no. So it's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for all of you for your votes, putting us in above 18 category. It's really an honor, if I can say that. So my name's Stuart. I'm the Global Education Manager for International Beverage. For those of you who have not heard of us, we've got 5 distilleries in Scotland, one in France with Larson Cognac. We've got 3 in Thailand, and now we've taken over Cardrona Distillery, which I'm sure a few of you will know, in New Zealand in the south end of the island, which is an incredible, incredible distillery. But yeah, Balblair, for those of you that don't know, we're located in the Northern Highlands, so just near Dornoch, which I'm sure a lot of you will know, considering some incredible brothers producing exceptional whiskey out of there, the Thompson brothers. But for those of you that don't, we are past a small distillery called Glenmorangie, if anyone's heard of it. On the right-hand side, you come to around, I'm teasing, of course, our ex-distillery manager worked there for a number of years. You come to a roundabout, instead of going across the Dornoch Firth North, you actually continue down, and underneath the Struy Hills, you'll find Balblair. As traditional looking distilleries you'll probably ever find as it goes. One of the oldest licensed distilleries, 1790, and the venue of the hit film Angel Share by Ken Loach. It was the site and distillery where he chose to do the filming of that, which was exciting.
Declan
So
Corcoran on the call is going to have a bit of a bone to pick on that. Because the exterior was, but I think the
two
interior
sites. Yeah.
was Deanston. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. The
sorry.
interior of Balblair is, and you know what? I'll completely adhere to that because the interior of Balblair is not conducive of film equipment, etc. It's quite tight. Let's say Deanston is a much
Yeah, well, actually, I'm
much more
thinking of
open
the
distillery in
earlier
that regard.
scene, the one with Glengoyne. So maybe you're right
Yeah.
in both of them. Sorry, there's three distilleries in that thing. So I'm the one who's interrupted to make a tit of myself. But yeah.
No, not at all. And then that's us. Yeah. So. The whole thing with the range, and including for the 12-year-old and up, is all 46% non-chill filtered and natural color. And the 21-year-old that we're drinking this evening is the newest addition to that range as well. So we are 15 years in ex-American oak, all refill bourbon. And then we are 6 years exclusively in first fill Oloroso sherry. And that's true for the full range, any re-racking. So we source all of our sherry casks from Jose Miguel Martin in Jerez. Really exceptional cask. I mean, what Miguel doesn't know about sherry and sherry casks, it's probably not worth knowing. So we're very fortunate to be able to work with them. So 6 years in first fill Oloroso, and I think the remarkable thing about this is the color in it. It's quite amber gold. It's not really driving into that really rich redness that you would maybe expect from it. And with that, and the way that we process Balblair, the way that we make it, there's this almost juxtaposition. We've capacity to produce about 1.7 million liters of alcohol per year. And currently, we've been playing around with water recently, but currently we're producing about 1.45 million liters of alcohol per year. And I know this is recorded, but I'll say it anyway. Martin will come shoot me anyway. But the idea being is that you've got quality over quantity is the idea, and that's absolute nonsense because every distillery is looking for quality. No distillery goes into this to make bad quality whiskey. I think what they're really trying to get across here is the Balblair flavor profile over producing more spirit, and that's absolutely trany. And I think any of the guys here will say that is, we can our mash specifically is our probably our bottleneck with the distillery and it's not the sexiest part of it. It's not fermentation, it's not distillation, but the mash tun, we drain it incredibly slowly, and there's nothing wrong with doing it quickly. It's just the way the profile that we try to achieve, which is doing it as slow as possible to get the wort as clear as possible. And I think that kind of comes through in the whiskey. In our new mixed spirit, it's more tropical, ester led, and putting that into refill bourbon, it's almost like taking it to the gym before we re-rack it into first fill, just to get that as long as possible. And I don't think there's necessarily acute pineapples or mangoes here, but certainly peaches, stone fruits adjacent, and then the depth of that becomes raisins and chocolates and everything else that you can expect. And I'm always a bit hesitant to throw tasting notes out because I think developing your own relationship with it is so much more important. But it's for me, it's very much that stone fruit side. There's even some, dark caramel and dark chocolate in there, but there's levity to it. There's freshness and brightness, I think, too.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary dram. I mean, I think when we were drinking the Inch Journey, there was someone mentioned sour mash, might have been Daniel, and there's some of those sour mash whiskies. There's an element to the finish that reminds me of some of those kind of like Michter sour mash whiskies. In addition to what you were saying, it's got tropical fruit. It's got something else. It's really interesting. It's very, very different to what we've tried so far. Even the Glenrothes, in terms of its flavor profile, personally, I find, but it's really interesting. It's won an incredible category of whiskies. I mean, the gold medalists in that category are Bushmills 21, Glen Scotia 25, Glenfarclas 25-year-old. So you're there with like sort of super premium drams across the board. So yeah, it's an extraordinary drop. So we've got tasting notes coming in for it. Even without touching slash smelling that Balblair, I love Balblair. We've got I get a kid's cough syrup on the nose. Balblair was one of the best experiences I've ever had at a distillery. Amazing whiskey, says Andrew. Phenomenal dram. Stuart, you make a bloody good whiskey. Question for Stuart, please, says Christian. Actually, I'll come back to this because I'll go through some of the tasting notes first. This is my first Balblair and it's absolutely lovely. I can never decide if starting with a 21-year-old at a new distillery is a good or bad idea, which is a really good point, Christian. Raisins, cinnamon, coated pineapple, and rancho on the nose. A Christmas dram to take slowly. Dark chocolate, almost hinting at espresso for me. That's great. Ian, I totally agree. So another distillery that flies under the radar. Whole range is excellent. 21 is top drawer. Super visit there in 2019. Well looked after by the team. So there's a few more, but I don't want to spend the next 20 minutes just reading out taste notes, and this drama as good as it is. So Christian's question was a question for Stuart, please. As you mentioned, the natural color after recent changes with Speyburn and Annock, will there be similar changes for Balblair and Old Putney, or will they stay at 46% / natural color / non-chill filtered? Really hope you keep Balblair and Putney as they are? Question mark.
Yeah, there's no plan to change them whatsoever. And just so we're all clear, is that we've definitely taken on that information and taken on that feedback as me being part of a lot of those meetings to fight the good fight, let's say. But even with Anok, we're now having discussions and certain things on the horizon that I can't say in this forum, unfortunately. But just keep an eye out. But no, there's no plan to do that with Old Pulteney or Balblair. I think especially Balblair, it's a cornerstone. Even our 12-year-old is sitting at 46, natural color, non-chill filtered, and I think it's such an incredible thing to be able to see an entry-level whiskey at that point, and then allow you to kind of go into the range with that level of consistency. So no, it's a fair question, and I've been challenged to many a fight at a whiskey show now that I'll never take up. But it's a very fair question. But no, there's no plans to change whatsoever.
Yeah, well, we did a whiskey digital drams with Anok shortly after the kind of rebranding, and it's I think it's still an excellent excellent dram, and it's won a couple of gold medals as well on here. So, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear what your news is. Whenever we get it.
No,
So yeah,
100%. And it's part of that reason is also Sarah Burgess joining us, which has been an incredible addition for any
I
of you
saw
that
that in
don't
the
know.
spirits business. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. So she's ex Macallan, and then everything that has been coming out of the Lakes Distillery, one of my favorite distilleries in England, arguably the UK. Don't tell Scotland. Is come from Sarah. So really excited to have her part of the team, and just even sitting in whiskey creation conversations, she's brilliant. So it's really nice to have her part of that and part of that new future direction for all the distilleries.
Yeah, no, excellent. Whiskey Slayer said this just doesn't feel like a 46%. This is a great dram for newbies. I personally struggle with the nose sometimes, but coffee and marzipan jump out for me. Coconut pineapples very much in the mouth. Dark chocolate bounty bar with a kick of cloves on the finish. Smoothest of the night for me. Christian says, thanks, Stuart. Really good to hear your feedback. Take your feedback into account. Much appreciated. Obviously, Christian was the one who asked that question. Corey Sutton says, Stuart, describe this whiskey in 3 words.
Oh, Corey, you're putting me on the spot. Layered is definitely one. I think sitting with this for a while, if you get the opportunity to do so, it really opens up at different levels. It oxidizes really beautifully as well. It's something I really find across the range for Balblair. I've never really seen whiskies oxidized to that level in comparison to, for example, say wine. So layered. Um, hmm, Complex is arguably adjacent to that, but let's say chocolatey and fruity. Go for it. Those 3.
Marvelous. Um, so we've got Rohit. It said nose, creamy nuts and light leather, sherry cask influence, palate, dark chocolate, coconut, reds, fruit, cinnamon, all very well balanced. Only complaint is the price difference between 18 and 21, to be honest. And Frank D says, at Bob, absolutely Anok is the best whiskey. This is Bob has meant to comment about if Anok says at 46%, we need a celebration dram night. So yeah. The so it's can you tell us a bit about the kind of packaging as well? It's a unique bottle. As people who've drank it before will have known, it's kind of that squat shape. It comes in a very different type of packaging than some of the other whiskies that would have been competing against in this category. And obviously on the front of it, there's kind of, is it a Pictish symbol or something on there as well?
Yeah, so it's locally known as the Z Rod. It actually sits in the Clachbjorach, which is the standing stone that sits right in front of the distillery. It's an incredible piece. And if anyone's ever been to Balblair, you'll have seen it as you drive into the distillery on your left-hand side. It sits in the farmer's field. Only one time I've not been able to take people in because the cows were rampaging and around, but it's pretty accessible. If you do go up, you're more than welcome to go in and have a look. And the Pictic symbol that sits there, archaeologists have talked about it being the sun and the moon and the Z rod being life and death. But the actual answer is that we don't really know the factual reason of what it is. But the stone itself was estimated to have been erected at the maximum, the Neolithic era, which is 4000 BC. So that's the max, so maximum 6000 years old. And in fact, the symbol itself that's carved on the stone is technically graffiti. That was 2000 BC. So it's a 2000-year difference between when it was erected and the markings that sit on it. But very much part of where we're located, who we are, and specifically that essence of time and how much we honor it in like regards to, producing 1.75 liters potentially, but only producing 1.45. It's making sure that we're producing whiskey in our way. It's not about the right or wrong way. We're producing it in our way and making sure that we're taking the time to do it the way that we want to produce it, not the way that you could.
Hmm. Hmm. Mike says very subtle on the nose, complex and fruity with chocolate, very lovely dram. So you mentioned the other drams or the other brands, sorry, in your portfolio. We've had, I think, pretty apart from maybe Speyburn, we've had them all on Digital Drams. Someone on this call might correct me if we've had Speyburn and I've totally memory hold it. But we've had Cardrona on twice actually. So that's a bit different. Kind of a kind of because when the first time we had Cardrona on. They were still an independent brand, and then the second time we had them on, they were part of your portfolio. Can you tell us maybe because it's still relatively recent news? Can you tell us a bit about how that kind of occurred, or what that's been like selling this new kind of whiskey from the other side of the world?
Yeah, it's been really exciting actually because I don't know if anyone's been to Cardrona because it's the literal opposite side of the world, but it's such an incredibly small distillery, right? It's really, really small, but we're producing so much from it. So it's led by Sarah Elsom, the master distiller, with a very small distillery team that are working round the clock. And we produce, so whiskey, of course, we're producing vodka in the Reed, if anyone's ever tasted it. I'm not a vodka fan. I'm the first person to admit it. If you've ever tasted the Reed, it's remarkable. It's like foam bananas in a glass. I've never tasted anything like it. I would argue it's not even a vodka. It's something completely separate. Produce the Source gin. We're also producing liqueurs. So one of them, the brand's Rose Rabbit, where we produce an elderflower, a butterscotch, and my particular favorite is an orange liqueur, which is effectively a triple sec, but sitting at 47%, the peels of which are taken from a local soda factory, that it's their wastage that we then mix in by hand. Like it's just this very hands-on. Everyone's bottling, everyone's labeling, stickering it on. If you ever see a label skew with, it's because it's been done by an individual person. It's remarkable. And working with them has been really exciting to be able to open up this new avenue of yes, world whiskey, but it's everything's sitting at high ABV, natural color, non-chill filtered, and it's almost against what has been done in the whiskey industry for a big way, which is that grassroots looking at 12 years old, trying to get that volume out. It's still very much looking at this whiskey geek, whiskey nerd, which I am, and trying to put it into that whiskey specialist with yourselves, Luke, as well, that it's something to offer us that's adjacent to our portfolio, right? It's this new offering from World Whiskey, but not just that, really wild, interesting flavors that change all the time. I mean, our new single cask, the Otago, we're the only ones to use the Pinot Noir Otago cask, which I was surprised that I actually looked that up when I first heard about it a year ago. And I was like, there must be somebody else using them. But no, we're the only ones doing it. And then releasing it at 62%, I think that one put went out at. It's not necessarily the most approachable whiskey in the world in that regard, but when you taste it, delicious. It's really, really good to work with.
Yeah, and we've got some love for the Cardrona in the chat there. We've got Kevin Wright saying, I highly recommend Cardrona whiskies. Cardrona is the very best young, i.e., 3-year-old whiskey I've ever had, and it was with Luke and the whiskey shop, but the price was big for a 50 cl bottle. I think it's actually smaller than 50 cl. Some of them were they 350 mil or something.
Some of them were, yeah. We've actually run out of those, so we're moved away. So I think the Falcon is our newest release, look, that's going to be is a 750 bottle.
Hmm. But no, it's a good. I don't mean to take Belle Blair's moment in the spotlight. But it's just yeah, something a bit different
Not at all.
from the chat, and a brand that obviously a lot of people on here will be familiar with from our double digital drams. So marvelous. Stuart, is there anything else you wanted to kind of share around Belle Blair before we move on?
No, nothing. It's just, I mean, it's a really incredible lineup of whiskey, to be honest. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. When you said waiting patiently, I'm just very happily so as well. And I know a couple of the guys. It's really good to see these whiskies. As you said, it's quite different, all of them.
Hmm.
But my God, they're good. Really good.
No, they certainly are. I suppose the one bit I haven't said yet is that the price point for this, so it's £308, but you'll save 15% off that, so that'll be I don't know, do the math, 260 something, roughly, as well. So that's a big so that's probably the biggest saving on the night, percentage wise. So, you know, if
When
you're
was the
really
Christmas
looking,
orders in again, Luke?
Monday at 1 o'clock is the cutoff for Christmas orders. So
Oh,
per
good to know.
volume savings, if your Secret Santa budget was 260 something, this was used to be out of it, and after tonight, it's bang inside it. Camille says, "Well, I do enjoy various rare whiskies. My heart belongs to Aaron. The 26-year-old being my personal favorite. So that's good, Camille. Maybe Aaron one day will step up to the plate and win W Club Whiskey of the Year, but it hasn't yet. So instead, we're gonna move on to what is actually the Whiskey of the Year, which is the Deanston 18, with Declan. Declan,
Thanks.
can you hear me? Are you? Or
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
hear me?
I just got the unmute flag up there, so it's nice to not just start speaking. And thanks for the reminder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I keep forgetting to unmute people. I think I kept Luke waiting a while, but anyway.
oh, it's a classic, start talking and everyone's saying you're muted. So yeah, thanks for that. But no, I've had such a good time on this tasting, and I've been really enjoying listening to all the guys explain everything. So yeah, there's no bad whiskies. There's no best whiskies. I think I don't want to have. There's a little bit of pressure being the overall winner here, but it's not any pretentiousness at all. I think they're all incredible whiskies. So I'm properly chuffed that Deanston won. Um, Deanston's a brand that's really close to my heart because I was a tour guide there. So probably over 10 years ago now, that's how I got into whiskey. I'm from Dunblane, so really close. I used to cycle in from to the distillery, across past the old railway at Doon. So yeah, very, very fond memories. And as soon as I smell the 12 and 18, the Virgin Oak, it just takes me right back to the distillery. So yeah, but yeah, it's been an honor, obviously winning the overall. So I think it's well deserved. Personally, I think the Deanston 18 is an underrated dram. I go to a lot of shows, festivals. There's still people that are very into whiskey that just are like, yeah, I've never tried Deanston, don't know where it is, but they're massive whiskey fans. So it's always surprising that there's people that are so into whiskey but just haven't got around to trying it yet. I mean, the distilleries, we opened in the 1960s and 66, actually. So I guess in terms of, we've got Tobermory in our portfolio that's from the 1700s. So yeah, and as are some of the whiskies that we've heard from tonight are much older, but it's quite a young distillery in that aspect. So yeah, in terms of the distillery itself, it's actually in an old cotton mill from 1785. So I love the kind of industrial background of Deanston. That's what really amazes me, because it's not really a place that was meant to be made to make whiskey. It was made for cotton, and the whole village of Deanston was built around that. All the workers' cottages. I think we've actually changed the corks on the newer bottles, but you might, if you have a bottle of a Deanston from the last few years, it's got the coin kind of imprinted on the top. Actually, this one I have has it. So there's the Deanston coin on the top of the bottle. So that was what the workers were paid in, and that's what they could spend in the village. So that's a little nod to that. But yeah, so built in 1785, it was designed by Richard Arkwright, who was a pioneer of the Industrial Revolution. So yeah, kind of one of the first factory concepts, as it would be. But we are completely self-sustainable. It's all hydropower. So there was 4 water wheels back in the day, and now it's a turbine house. So when I worked at the distillery, I could literally just wander anywhere probably shouldn't expose this, but I would just try and wander anywhere I could, and there's not as much health and safety as there is now. So I've been up on top of the down the lade where the water comes in from the river teeth, and yeah, been all in every corner in the big main building where there was all the looms would run. So yeah, right off the river teeth, as Stuart was saying about the Angels Share film, and Luke was saying about that too. Some of the interior of the distillery was actually filmed at Deanston. I've been on the set for Outlander, which was in one of the warehouses at one point. There was Game of Thrones around, so Monty Python was filmed down the road at Doon Castle, as was Outlander. So yeah, lots of stuff going on in the wee town of Doon and Deanston. So, like I said, it's completely self-sustainable. So we have been making organic whiskey, which is another SKU of ours since the year 2000. So we have the oldest organic on the market, which was our 21-year-old. So organic whiskey, self-sustainable. We only use about 20% of the power that we make from the turbine house. So we send back around 80% to the grid. So Deanston's always been kind of cool, forward thinking, even before it was kind of cool to be that way. All the whiskey that is matured, well, part of the distillery on site would be in the weaving shed, which was where all the cotton was woven. It's got those big kind of vaulted ceilings, really thick concrete ceilings that would stop the noise of the machinery to the outside, and it's actually just became the perfect place to leave the whiskey on our dunnage in that warehouse. So that's our only dunnage warehouse, and we've got some high rack in there as well. And yeah, I just think Deanston is quite an underrated dram in general. Like I say, there's not as many people know of it yet. It's quite, we do some experimental releases. We've got one coming out at the start of this year in March, which I can't talk about because it's under embargo, but I really want to because it's very, very cool. But, if you've heard of the tequila one we done a few years ago, we can kind of do experimental finishes. We use a lot of wine, sherry, kind of wines like Banyuls and things like that. Just, different casks that are quite interesting, and we can do a lot with Deanston. So yeah, and I think, well, if you're trying it right now, instead of me yapping on about Deanston, I could talk about it all day. This is the 18-year-old. So we start off the range with our Virgin Oak, which is finished in new barrels, and then we've got our 12-year-old, which is completely in refill casks. The 18-year-old is actually primarily in those hogsheads, the kind of American oak refills, and then it's been in there for 16 years, and for 2 years it's finished off in first fill bourbon. So I think what the first fill bourbon does is it just brings that real concentrated kind of marmalade-y gingerbread flavor. Julianne Fernandez is our master blender, so she kind of describes this as like vanilla custard and cinnamon sprinkled on it, poured over a cigar box. So it's kind of got that tobacco note running through it. I'm the same as Stuart. I don't really like going on about tasting notes because it's also subjective. But yeah, I like to talk about it with kind of that marmalade gingerbread thing. And yeah, I can leave the rest up to you, whatever you're picking out. I'm sure I'm not even, the comments are quite small.
Yeah, there's been some great comments
coming up, but
yeah, no, there's been some great comments coming in, and that's really, really well put. Everything you've just said there, Declan, has really kind of sold Deanston. As obviously some people on this chat won't know, I live about 2 miles from the Deanston distillery. So in the summer, along the River Teeth, I walk my dog nearly every day. And this time of year, maybe in the weekends when it's not too dark. So maybe I'm also biased. But it is a really tremendous part of the world. It's definitely worth a visit. As some people in the chat have also said, people like Frank Deese and Bob Sandler, so they visited there and raved about how good it is. I'm not going to lie, when I was first starting working in whiskey properly, I was another peek behind my partner and you used to work at Deanston together, and she had just left there when I first met her, and she was like, "Oh, this was the brand I used to work for. She gave me a Deanston 12," and I actually wasn't impressed by this. And I say this in the context of what people have said about cult following in the chat, which we'll come on to in a second. But I think, obviously I was about 24 at the time and, drank mostly Irish whiskey, and it was the 12-year-old, which obviously is an 18-year-old. But I think when you drink a lot of whiskey, you begin to appreciate the waxy character, the kind of the complexity, the uniqueness of it as well. When you kind of it is so different than, I mean, not totally every other whiskey. There are a couple of that are similar, but it does have a real signature style. I know every brand claims to, but Deanston really does. And it takes finishes so well. I bought from the distillery last year, maybe the start of this year. I can't remember. I think it was 2008 PX cask finish, kind of distillery bottling or sin cask. Phenomenal. One of the best drams I have in my home bar. It's down to about 2 shots left, and I refuse to finish it because I don't want to, I don't want it to end. So it's really
Yeah,
is
there's
a great whiskey.
yeah, no, I agree that when you mentioned PX there, I'm sure I've got a wee bit left of a 1992 single cask PX. Um, yeah, knowing some of the guides at Deanston's quite handy to get little tastings of things still, you know. So yeah, it was my friend Ister that sort of pulled that for me from one of the casks. But that, yeah, it was incredible. That one thing you were saying there about maybe the 12-year-old, and I think a lot of people that drink whiskey, they're really drawn towards sherry drams. And I love that. You know, I do love sherry. I love obviously Bunnahabhain in our portfolio is very sherry and nutty. It's all that Oloroso casks and Canasta and all those great sherries. But I think now for my palate, I don't know if it's just my how long I've been drinking whiskey or just the way I am now, but my palate's developed to be I just love bourbon cask whiskies. When I'm going to a lot of these festivals, I kind of just look for bourbon casks now. I just feel like you really get the transparency of the new make coming through. And yeah, that's just I like bourbon cask whiskey, so it's quite nice to know what I like now, and I can pick out things and I can see what I'm into. But what you touched on there about the actual liquid, I forgot to mention, which again Stuart had mentioned about the Balblair. That's our whiskies are also non-chill filtered, and they're all natural color as well. That's for our whole portfolio. So there's a lot of the ethos that's shared across our portfolio, you know, with Tobermory and Leipzig and Bunnahabhain. That's all minimum 46.3%, which this one is, and it's all natural color, non-chill filtered. And then the waxy thing that you mentioned, look, I'm glad you reminded me about that because it is a very unique characteristic of Deanston, and it's why we're also used in some other big blends that people might have heard of that require that kind of waxy character and the malt to be used in a blend. But what it is that we actually don't clean out our faints receiver. So I'm sure kind of whiskey geeks on the call will know all about it. But you know when those faints are running back through to in the distillation process, that faints receiver box, it's just full of like black oil. It's kind of crazy. Andrew Waite, who's our head of distilleries, he actually puts on a glove when he took me around and he scooped out the oil in his hand. And it's just this big, you know, all those kind of impurities and esters and oils from the distillation and whatever, you know, it's just picking up there and that's not getting cleaned. So it's really picking up the waxy character from that. So it was him showing me all this around the receiver that made me understand more about that kind of texture and mouthfeel. And obviously leaving it non-chill filtered, it just allows us to get that real kind of mouth coating waxiness, which is, you know, carriers of flavor and its texture. So yeah, really important to the character of Deanston. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. We got some great comments coming in about Deanston, about the whiskey itself. Duncan has said the nose seems older than a typical 18-year-old. Daniel has said delicious. Andrew says visited Deanston recently. It's been had been meaning to for years. It's definitely worth a visit. And the Amontillado drunk was exceptional. It's a hidden, undiscovered gem. Congrats. Deanston is very much the same vein as Annock and Balblair to some degree. There's a cult following that appreciates how good it is without being more widely known. Kevin Wright says, I was trying to work out what the nose brought to mind. Maybe you said the distillery was a cotton mill. It triggered an image, but I get musty old cotton, really nostalgic. That is quite a nice story. Way to be introduced to the distillery. Thank you, Declan. Richard Arkwright says built some of the dark satanic mills just up the Drent Valley for me in Derby. So
Yeah,
there you
yeah,
go.
that's a famous one down there. Yeah.
There's a nice William Blake quote reference there as well. We're all seeming very cultured on this chat. Deanston 18 is the best pound for pound, and it's a pound for pound whiskey out there. I've got a few in stock from a couple of years ago. Price starting to go up, but not like some. I won't name the brands. But yeah, you get the idea. Great distillery to visit. Generous tasting bar, super shop, and yummy cafe. The cafe is brilliant. The cafe. When I first
Coffee,
moved to the
coffee.
area 4 years ago. What I really liked about visiting the cafe is that it's always packed with locals, not just people who've done the tour, which shows that, if locals are coming in for a soup and sandwich, and not just people who are kind of a captive audience because they've just finished a whiskey tour, it's a good cafe. So yeah, sorry, you were going to say something there in that regard, Declan?
Yeah, not just the coffee bothy. Yeah, it's very much adored by people locally, and I think the other coffee bothy is over near Alva kind of way. But yeah, it's kind of its own entity, but it's part of the distillery experience. So yeah, if anyone on the call can come by, it's obviously Deanston's a very accessible distillery to come and visit. If you've got a driver, even better, you know. But yeah, you can stop and have some lunch, and it's a great tour. You know, I do sound biased, but I do think that you get to experience the history of the place, and you get to see so many parts of the distillery, and obviously where we're producing the power. And yeah, starts in the cask yard, finishes right in the warehouse tasting if you do that. So I don't. When I was actually a tour guide there, we didn't do warehouse tasting, so now you can actually get that experience, which is very romantic. You know, with the sort of fairy lights up in the warehouse, and it looks great with the sort of church pews. You probably come out when the cold air hits you. It's like when you go into Bunnahabhain warehouse taste and you come out and the sea air hits you and you realize how much you've drank in there. So yeah, I'd really recommend stopping by if you can. And like Luke said, well, I think the big thing about Deanston 18, and as I don't want to talk too much about other whiskies in our portfolio because it's not about that right now, but kind of like Deanston 18, Leipzig 18, they're whiskies that are at a really affordable price point for the age. You know, still under Leipzig's under £100, and Deanston, I think, Luke, you can confirm, but I'm sure it's £89 on Whisky Shop. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of work with Deanston, and I just think it really needs to be more out there, more well known. It deserves more attention and more love. So that's why I'm so chuffed that it won this award because I just think it hopefully will get some more recognition that it deserves. And yeah, it's just for me, it's what got me into whiskey is the 12 and 18. So it's very close to my heart.
No, brilliant. No, well said. And I'm just going to let anyone who's presented a whiskey tonight come back in now. So Seb, Stuart, Luke, you should have gotten a request to unmute yourself. I am trying to find Daniel. There he is. Marvelous. So that should be everyone, I think.
Yep.
So, folks, before we jump into a little kind of debrief and any questions from the chat, we normally at this stage in there's a couple of comments I will come to, folks. I'm not forgetting you, but the normally at this stage we say, you know, rate your favorite whiskey on the night from the tasting if you've done one with a brand, but obviously you know, this has already been decided, I suppose, in many respects, by the W Club at large. The Deanston 18 is sorry, I hate saying so much, but I'm just bringing up the price here for everyone. Is 89 pounds before the 15% discount. So the discount, folks, for that is WS26MC. That's Whisky Shop. Sorry, 25 MC. Not 26. So W Club Whisky Shop 25 members choice will get you 15% off the drams we've tasted tonight. So yeah, folks, everyone, in terms of before we get to everyone on the call who are the more important people, in terms of our premium members, for everyone who presented a whiskey tonight, Luke, Sebastian, Declan, Daniel, Stuart, have you any thoughts on anything that's been tried tonight? Maybe a brand you haven't tried before, or you know, everyone make a comment about the other person's whiskey and let's see who fights.
It's dangerous, very dangerous, Luke.
You can go first, Sebastian. There, having spoke up.
Oh dear, what have I done? No, I guess just yeah, great lineup. Like a real pleasure to try some really amazing whiskies there. You know, some absolute banger drams that I wouldn't necessarily have the budget to try, you know, on a Thursday night. So yeah, really appreciate it. For me, the saying that, even though about, you know, some of these are brilliant age statements, I felt that Glenrothes was an absolute standout for me personally. The 11 Road was absolutely fantastic. Likewise, the Balblair was a new one for me, one I've not tried before. I'm a big fan of Deanston, always have been. It's one of the first whiskies that really got me into whiskey. But yeah, some real highlights tonight.
Marvelous. No, that's well said. Luke, seeing as he mentioned your brand, you can go next. Like a noble call.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been a really nice one to be involved with, right, this evening. I mean, we've had, sort of, not only sort of blends and stuff like that, but independent bottlers. We've had sort of distillery sort of bottling. Yeah, there's been a real nice mix for everybody this evening, and very, very difficult to pick out a favorite. Um, I mean, I think that the Deanston, that we've just tried and stuff like that to sort of finish with was absolutely wonderful. The Bell Blair, I think in terms of the sort of complexity and stuff around that, was absolutely sort of fantastic. And I think it was mentioned about that element of stone fruit. I've got quite a partial, sort of a bit of a fondness and stuff for that sort of stone fruit and that kind of apricot sort of element that sometimes comes through. So that hit a real note for me. Glasgow, I've only sort of tried a couple of releases, so it was really nice to sort of go back, sort of into that to have a little bit of a try. And I think with the peated element of that, I'm a big fan of peated whiskies, and and there was a bit of chat earlier about sort of what ones and stuff are people's favourites at Christmas. I always have a kind of go-to peated sort of whiskey on Christmas Day that I'll be enjoying again. That's totally off-brand, and to go for. But this was really really nice to be able to try. So definitely, I think for the Glasgow guys, will be definitely trying some more of those. Sort of the Inchdarney and stuff. I mean, I think was fantastic. And certainly something to keep an eye on. For the future. I think that having that sort of the rye element is fascinating, and I find rye as a grain is quite difficult to work with. And that sort of spiciness that comes through. But that was a really really well done dram. So very much enjoyed that. And the black bottle, I think for blends, I think blends, still, sort of, quite underrated nowadays. And this was really, really nice. And that element again for me, like in sort of PE, sort of drams, that smoke coming through. So yeah, as I said earlier, there wasn't a bad dram, amongst all of this evening. And I think, listening to everybody's chat, was really, really good. Some fascinating stuff, some great stories and stuff, from everybody. Really good knowledge and information, and I've really enjoyed this, and I think everybody else and stuff by the sound of it has too. So yeah, great stuff. Thanks, guys.
Marvelous. No, thank you, Luke. There's some great comments coming in from the chat, which we'll come on to in a second. I don't know if Stuart and then Daniel want to give your thoughts first on the night, and then we'll come to some of the questions that have popped up, and then we'll call it an evening.
Yeah, no, it was, I think Declan had said it earlier. It's just, there's no such thing as a bad whiskey, that old adage, some are just better than others. And I'll kind of caveat that and say it's for you as an individual, right? The only person that can tell you how good a whiskey is you. And we're in a position where we're drinking the best of the best as voted by all you guys, and it's a privilege to be here for that. But really, I mean, Seb, we've spoken a bunch of times, and I'll hound you at every whiskey show I can because you know how I feel about 1770 and Glasgow distillery stuff, right? And a massive fan of G&M, and look, we like, not you and I directly, but in companies wise, we've worked in bottled stuff in the past. And Daniel, from an engineering point of view, I find it, just from a nerd's point of view, it's fascinating, right? It's the hammer mill, everything around it. It's such a unique and arduous way of making whiskey, and some might say, but it produces such incredible liquids as we've seen tonight. And Declan, hey, we don't need to say anything. You won the whole thing, man. Well done.
Yeah.
But I'm also a fan of Deanston, right? It's all credit to you. It was a great dram, and I think from that price point, wow, yeah, jump on that. If anyone can buy me a bottle, I'll send you the cash with that 15% discount. But Deanston has always, I've had a soft spot for it, living not far away, my parents at the same time. So no, it's always kind of, it's that way. It's the best of the W Club. It's the best of the whiskies that we've had for this year, and that is very, very, very present here. So thank you for having me, and hopefully we might get in next year with something else again, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. You got to be in it to win it. So yeah, I'll be knocking on your door in a couple of months for your entries for next year. So
Brilliant.
marvelous. So Daniel, last but not least.
Yeah, I just want to mirror Stuart and everyone else's comments about the whiskies, all absolutely smashing drams. It makes me feel very kind of privileged that Inchdarney Rylaw was part of such a good lineup. It's amazing to be in such great company. A distillery that continues to impress me is the Glasgow distillery. I mean, I absolutely love peated whiskey. I thought it was an absolutely cracking dram. I'm a massive fan of the Gordon MacPhail independent bottlings as well. Glenrothes, wonderful spirit, wonderful distillery. I thought it was absolutely delicious. The black bottle, the peated blend. We actually have a whiskey that's quite similar in our portfolio called Isla Mist actually. And this is the first time that I've actually tried Black Bottle, and it's absolutely delicious. It's absolutely superb. The value for money is absolutely incredible. The two whiskies that I'm keeping back for Christmas Day are definitely the Balblair and the Deanston. I mean, they're just absolutely superb, like just amazing, well-rounded, absolutely delicious, and can't wait to share them with my dad on Christmas Day. Oh, there we go. Isla Mist, love that.
I've
Oh yeah,
Grab your bottle.
you've got a special, yeah, you've got the 21 and you've got the special one in the far corner there. Look, I've seen that.
I hadn't even noticed the special one in the far corner.
There you go.
But,
See,
yeah,
I've got
there
a
you
sharp, I've got a sharp eye.
go.
But no,
Oh, Daniel,
like,
I've got one too. It's a great dram.
oh dear. Give us some. But no, all fantastic, all fantastic drams, and can't wait to sit down in front of the TV and enjoy them properly. And thank you very much for everyone's input. It was a really, really interesting night.
No, it really was, and in terms of your go-to Christmas dram point, or your kind of Christmas drams comment you made there, I suppose that was one of the questions we got in terms of which everyone's been kind of commenting underneath, which is fantastic to see. But if you only rule is you cannot name one from your own portfolio. What's your go-to whiskey dram, everyone? Declan, do you want to start as whiskey?
I'm looking at myself trying to see if I can see one.
That's what I'm doing. Declan, I'm doing the exact same thing.
I've been
Which
really
one's the
like
next
it.
one you reach for, right?
Yeah, I think outside of mine, I'm a big fan of the likes of Aaron, and I love Ardnamurchan right now. I've been really loving what they're doing, and I'm just looking over. I love the Glen Scotia kind of Campbelltown malt stuff that they bring out. Christmas though, it needs to be a Christmassy vibe, doesn't it? So I'll probably go. Oh, I've got this one. This is quite a cool one from Sweden, Macmura. It's a single cask. It's my friend in Sweden gave me. It's like a Jaktvin After Hunt. It's called. It's a single cask from the Swedish Macmura. So this is really interesting. It's smoky and it's very rich, and it's this kind of wine that they drank after they would be out hunting. So that's the first one I found on my shelf.
Wow, he pulled out the really hipster left.
Yeah, I had to go niche there.
Down the pressures, but on everyone else.
Sorry, it was the smallest
you
bottle
can-
at the front of the shelf. So, gosh, yeah, there we go.
You can go next, Sebastian, if you want, in terms of your go-to dram for Christmas.
Go-to dram for Christmas. Well, whenever I take whiskey to my parents' house, which is where I usually have Christmas, my dad tends to drink most of the whiskey that I bring, and he's like a big sherry bomb kind of guy. So if it's like a Tamdu 12, 18, he's all over that. So that's one we'll probably be sharing a dram of in a week or so, I guess.
Marvelous. Luke, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I got asked this question on a tasting a couple of weeks ago, and it was always the same. One of the whiskies that really sort of blew my mind a number of years ago was Lafroig 18, and it was the one that sort of whiskey that sort of really I just thought this just keeps delivering 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50. It just kept going. So many some new things to explore, and that was something I really got into, and then they stopped doing it for a while. But I was lucky to find in a small sort of small independent retailer a case of it that secured for a very very reasonable price at the time. So it was my Christmas present to myself about 7 years ago. This case, and I've enjoyed a bottle stuff over Christmas every year for a period of 5 years up until last year when I couldn't actually bring myself to drink this last bottle, even though they've recently sort of brought it out again. But the year I've decided that it is going to be the year when I do crack that open. So from that original Lafroig 18 and stuff that I do have, Christmas Day that shall be being popped open, and I shall be enjoying that with a very nice cheese board, in the afternoon, stuffing my face with everything else all day. I'm sure like most people will do, but yeah, Lafroig 18 was my kind of Christmas go-to dram.
Marvelous, brilliant. Stuart.
Yeah, my wife and I got back from our honeymoon in September, and there's two that we've been kind of waiting to crack with the family. So it's from Kirin Distillery or Fuji Distillery. I'm sure a lot of you guys will know. It's they're single cask, so one malt, one grain, very very small bottles. But we've been very excited to crack these. So medium grain. So the capacity at Kirin Distillery is incredible. They have capacity to produce, they've got column stills. I think they also have a Loman still that you mentioned, Daniel, as well, and pots, of course. But this is sitting at 58 single cask American white oak barrel, and then the malt is also American white oak at 50%. So I don't know if we'll try and create our own blended, but we'll certainly be cracking them and trying them on Christmas Day.
Marvelous. I'll have to unmute you, Daniel.
Yeah, nice one. Sorry, I was just about to send you a message in the chat. My Christmas dram, what I'll be reaching for this year, for three reasons: one, value for money; two, sherry bomb; three, cash strength whiskey. Glenfarclas 105. I mean, I just don't think you can go wrong with that. You grab that, and everyone enjoys it around you. It's a really good conversation piece, and yeah, I've not had one for a while now, so I'm looking forward to having some over cheese and everything else that comes with Christmas dinner. Maybe a Terry's chocolate orange or two. I don't know if that's a good pairing or not, but I'll be having them anyway.
That's a great show. I haven't actually. That was a whiskey that a dram that got me into Scotch, and do you know I haven't
Yeah,
actually thought about that in at least all year, if not
yeah.
longer, until you mentioned it there. So that's a throwback. Brilliant, marvelous, folks. They're all really fantastic suggestions by everyone, and if, a few of them we've had on Digital Drams as well, which is always a bonus, or at least on the podcast. So there is so many great comments coming in. So thank you for all the kind words in the chat. I would love to read them all out. Just because we don't doesn't mean we don't see them. So yeah, we really appreciate the feedback, everyone's comments on the whiskeys. Just a reminder, WS25 MC members choice is what will get you 15% off all the drams you tried tonight. All the W Club award winners and gold medalists in each category are going to be 10% off until September, if you're a premium member. So if you missed out on the 15%, or if there's a dram that was one of the gold medalists that you want to try, please do try that. It's been an absolute privilege, everyone, on for not just tonight but also the whole year doing these tastings and everything. There'll be a lot more to come in 2026. So thank you for first of all our kind of hosts and presenters. Thank you so much, guys, for joining tonight, and speaking so eloquently about your brands and everything. It's really, really appreciated. But more importantly, to all the W Club members on the call, and everyone watching the recording who purchased this pack, thank you so much for all your support in 2025, and we look forward to enjoying whiskey together next year. So gents, thank you all. I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you have a fantastic evening.
Thanks very much, Luke. Much
Thank you, guys.
appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Brilliant.
All the
Thanks,
best.
everyone.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye bye.